personally horrified by the accusations against employees of U.N.R.W.A. Any employee involved in acts of terror will be held accountable, including through criminal prosecution.
Kidnapping, distribution of ammunition, and murder. These are just some of the accusations in a dossier from Israel detailing how at least 12 employees of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency aided Hamas during the October 7th terror attacks on innocent Israelis.
Now more than a dozen countries, including the United States, have taken steps to pause funding to the group. And tomorrow, the House Foreign Affairs Committee is set to hold a hearing on the agency's failures.
Our next guest is slated to testify at that hearing. Joining us now is Marcus Sheff, CEO of Impact SC. Marcus, this goes back years, and you have been writing about this some years ago, of how this organization and essentially United States dollars was going to radicalize children in Gaza, Palestinian children.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for having me. Yes, Impact SC has been, as you say, warning for years that if you teach children in schools to cut the neck of the enemy, that dying is better than living, that jihad and martyrdom are the most important meanings in life, that an attack with a firebomb on a bus full of civilians is a barbecue party, then something terrible is going to happen. And horrifyingly, that is what we saw on October the 7th. You know, those 3,000 terrorists who stormed over the international border, who murdered, who raped, who beheaded, who abducted young folks and old folks, you know, well over 100 are still in Gaza now. The majority of them statistically went to U.N.R.W.A schools because U.N.R.W.A teach at the majority of schools inside of Gaza. And this was the education that they got year after year after year, and a systematic education. You know, if you're going to teach young people to count by adding up martyrs of the First Intifada and martyrs of the Second Intifada, or teach them Newton's second law by using a slingshot where they will endanger themselves, you can only assume it is systematic, that it is absolutely part of the plan, that these children will become radicalized, will become extremists, and will commit the most terrible acts. And as you say, this is a system funded by the international community, and the US is about a third of that.
You know, Marcus, I think a lot of us are shocked that the United Nations would be funding this kind of thought. But and again, from an agency that is supposed to focus on relief and work, that they're funding these kind of beliefs. My question for you, though, is how pronounced are these warped ideologies throughout all of the UN? You see this elsewhere?
Well, you know, U.N.R.W.A is different. First of all, it is the only agency in the United Nations which, you know, deals with one people, with the Palestinians. U.N.R.W.A deals with refugees from all over the world. And what they tend to do is try, I think, a little bit harder not to teach this appalling material. But the reason that U.N.R.W.A does that is because it is originally produced at the Palestinian Authority. And so, you know, the root of the issue, certainly in relation to the actual textbooks, is the Palestinian Authority. U.N.R.W.A, though, produces its own material. It produces supplementary material, as they call it, to go with these textbooks, which is frankly just as bad. So, you know, there is something absolutely unique in the worst possible way, in the way that U.N.R.W.A has year after year after year been education to hate, education to violence. They made a choice. They could have chosen a peace and tolerance education. And you know, we look around the Middle East at the moment, and there are remarkable improvements being made in school curricula. In the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Morocco, Bahrain are all improving their school curricula. And this curriculum actually got worse in 2016. U.N.R.W.A were warned time and time again that something awful was going to happen, and it did.
And it did. Marcus Sheff, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today.